The Beverly Hillbillies, A Christmas Journey to Hooterville. Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed who was a poor mountaineer and barely kept his family fed. Then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground came a bubble and crude oil, that is, black gold. Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed is a millionaire. The kinfolk said, "Jed, move away from there." They said that California is the place you ought to be. So they loaded up the truck and moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools and movie stars. The Beverly Hillbillies are here. In the grand mansion of the Clampett family, the morning sun shone brightly, but the atmosphere was filled with a specific kind of country anticipation. Jed Clampett looked around for his faithful dog and asked if anyone had seen anything of Duke. Granny replied that Duke went out front with Ellie Mae to fetch the mail. Jed admitted he sure wished they would hurry because he was expecting a letter from his sweetie in Hootenville. Granny teased him by asking if he meant Sam Drucker. Jed guessed it right, and Granny confirmed that Sam was indeed her fella. Jed told her she should keep him in the share yard, to which Granny called him a sweet old rascal and noted that Sam belonged right there with her. Jed observed that Granny and Sam seemed to be getting kind of serious. Granny asked if he thought it was silly for someone so old to feel that way. Jed kindly told her not at all, though he added that he was no chicken himself. Suddenly, a voice called out that Granny had a letter from Hooterville. It was Ellie Mae running toward them. Granny begged to have it, but Ellie Mae explained it was coming with the rest of the mail by Pony Express. Granny urged the imaginary Red Rider to hurry and give her the letter. She grumbled that the mail was not slow enough and that she had to have an ape for a postmaster. When the mail finally arrived, Granny took a deep whiff of the envelope. Jed remarked that it smelled mighty good. Granny agreed, but said it was not as good as Sam usually smelled. There was another letter for Jethro from Billy Joe Bradley. Granny grabbed her own letter again and noted this one smelled better than the letter from Billy Joe. However, there was a second letter for Jethro from Bobby Joe Bradley. Granny called Jethro a little goomare and threatened to play cowboy and Indian, promising that the Indian would win if he did not give her the letter from Sam. She called Sam a romantic devil and said his letter smelled better than the other two. Granny was almost scared to sniff it. Jed suggested it might smell like spare rib. Granny was convinced he was a romantic devil because the last letter smelled like ham hocks and the one before that was pickled pig's feet. Jed joked that she ought to keep the picture of Sam in a lard can. Granny realized the scent had gone beyond spare rib and was more like well done sow belly. She suggested they sit down because this was bound to be a proposal. Jed warned her not to get her hopes too high, wondering if the fragrances were just because Sam wrote on butcher paper. Granny insisted it was no accident and that the rascal knew he was stirring up fires she thought were banked for good. Jethro wanted to be alone to read his own letters. He told Granny her letter was just kid stuff compared to his. He claimed both of the beautiful Bradley girls had promised to marry him. Jed asked if he meant both of them at once. Jethro explained that big Hollywood producers always have lots of wives. Granny corrected him, saying they do not have them at the same time. Jethro decided they would have to take turns, marrying Billy Joe one day and Bobby Joe the next. Jed remarked that Jethro marries just like he eats because he cannot wait for the second helping. Granny invited Jed to sit down so she could read the letter. Jed asked if it was too personal. Granny said he might find it a mite racy, but he was a grown man. She warned him that if it gave him high blood, he should just raise his hand and leave the room. The letter began with Sam hoping they would all come to Hooterville for Christmas. Granny was thrilled that he wanted all of her. Jed noted that Sam was a bold rascal. The letter mentioned that Sam had saved his sausage, skinned his chitlins, and hung his ham, hoping she would like them. Granny read it as Sam calling her sugar, but Jed pointed out the next line said sugar cured. Granny told Jed to read his own mail and said she was just trying to help. She told Jed to make arrangements to get them to Hooterville, and she would take it from there. Jed agreed to talk to Mr. Drysdale. Granny urged Sam, the saucy scallywag, to lay it on the line. Ellie Mae asked if they were really going to Hooterville for Christmas. Granny confirmed it, but told her not to bother her while she waited for the proposal. Ellie Mae wondered if Mr. Drysdale would take care of her critters like he did at Thanksgiving. She told her bear Fairchild, that Mr. Drysdale would give him breakfast in bed again. Meanwhile, at the bank, Mr. Drysdale was talking to Miss Jane Hathaway. He was upset that the employees were calling him Ebenezer Scrooge. Miss Jane noted that he did not display much holiday spirit. Mr. Drysdale defended himself by saying he gave them half a day off on Christmas. Miss Jane pointed out that the employees could not afford families and were lucky not to be in jail. Mr. Drysdale showed her a suggestion from the box that he considered shocking and vicious. Miss Jane suggested a Christmas bonus or gifts, but Mr. Drysdale refused to commercialize the holiday. Jed entered the office and greeted them. He saw a fire going, and Mr. Drysdale explained he was burning the mortgages of widows. Miss Jane whispered that he was all heart. Mr. Drysdale heard a demonstration outside and thought the employees loved him as a father image. Back at the mansion, Granny was preparing for a medical operation. She asked Jethro to get the gloves from the sterilizer. She wanted to remove the letter from the stomach of Fairchild the bear, because the bear had eaten it. Jethro was terrified and refused to hold down a bear, even if it had a jolt of anesthetic. He said he was a chicken in turn and would only hold a chicken. Granny decided to use her X-ray camera instead. Jethro doubted it would work because it was pitch black inside a bear. Granny explained they would mix flash powder with honey so the bear would swallow it. They would then use electricity to set it off. Jethro accidentally set off the flash powder himself and ended up with powder burns. Miss Jane arrived and saw Jethro with his hat on to hide his burnt hair. Jethro asked to borrow her red convertible to drive to Hooterville because the Bradley girls thought he was a producer. In Hooterville, Billy Joe and Bobby Joe were at the store with Sam Drucker. They were mailing letters to Jethro with stamps made of asbestos because the letters were so hot. They admitted they were just fooling Jethro because he promised to make them stars. Sam hoped they would not scare the Clampetts away. He mentioned he wrote his letters on butcher paper, and they joked about the romantic nature of it. Back in Beverly Hills, Granny was still worried about the proposal. She decided to call Sam on the telephone to hint around. When Sam answered, he was confused by Granny's questions. She asked if he remembered the question he asked in the letter. Sam said he asked if they would all come for Christmas. Granny was disappointed and asked for another question. She asked if she should pack something old and something new for a wedding. Sam tried to explain they were just putting Jethro on, but Granny hung up. Jethro then told Jed he was not going to Hooterville because Mr. Drysdale said he would go to jail for bigamy and something called a prole nollie dictum. Jed decided they would go anyway, and Miss Jane offered to drive them. Jethro decided to stay with Mr. Drysdale because he might need a lawyer. The family left Fairchild the bear with Mr. Drysdale as a Christmas guest. Granny gave Mr. Drysdale a present from the bank tellers. It was ticking like a clock. Mr. Drysdale was left with a bear and a ticking gift while the Clampetts headed for Hooterville. Now it is time to say goodbye to Jed and all his kin. They would like to thank you folks for kindly dropping in. You are all invited back next week to this locality to have a heaping helping of their hospitality. Hillbilly, that is. Set a spell. Take your shoes off. You all come back now, here?